What is going on, miners, and welcome back to the Hobbyist Miner channel. Well, I have a guest with me today. I would like to introduce Joseph Armeanio from the Ergo Foundation. What's going on, Joseph?
It's a pleasure to be here. Madness. It's post-merge, new reality for GPU miners out there, and so far, it's painful. Like
Growing pains, growing pains.
it's growing pains. It's
Yeah.
kind of, I look at it as like a day one reset, to be honest.
Mm.
Like the amount of capacity that just came off ETH, the
Yeah.
market needs to balance. It's the bottom line. Like if you look at the amount of rewards that were paid, those were paid to run machines, right? Plus a little bit of
Yeah.
profit. And right
Yeah.
now the market just can't absorb that capacity. So we're in like a race to the bottom in terms of profitability. Everybody's looking for work, and what happes? That drives
Yeah.
down wages.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's its own economy, which is really funny, like just the way that it works. And I asked Joseph to join me today. I wanted to kind of get him and some of Ergo's perspective on kind of post merge, kind of what things have looked like, and then we'll get into a few odd and ends. So Joseph, give us the rundown. The merge occurs,
Mhm.
and leading up to the merge, we did see several days ahead of time, a massive move of hash rate, but really after the merge is when we saw the big event occur. Give us the rundown from your perspective. How did you and the team see this? How did it go? Expectations, realizations?
Sure,
Give us a
sure.
quick recap.
Our expectation is that at some point, people were going to crowd each other out, right?
Mm.
And we do have a delayed difficulty, which makes this bump a little bit more painful.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
It is kind of like I'm just gonna say a black swan, or like a singular event that's
Okay.
gonna be hard to repeat, right?
Hmm.
With like having a market leader, I don't know, essentially commit suicide and
Yeah.
fire
Out.
all their miners
Yeah.
and send them off when the market just isn't, able to absorb that. People are gonna crowd each other out. There's no other way around that. Personally, I was a little shocked on how much our hash rate spiked. Um, just because I was thinking, okay, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to sit back, right? And that didn't happen. Everyone kind of went in full tilt. For us, because we have network delay, our chain sped up. There was a couple 1 second blocks. Now, actually, in terms of like the stress testing, we've seen it actually live last hard fork under worse loads. So there wasn't too much stress like internally, like the network's going to break or anything. But
Sure.
seeing 1 second blocks fire off is something special, I guess. And, so you get a tremendous amount of emissions in the upside of the curve. And then, the difficulty catches up. Miners kind of tend to say, okay, my profitability is gone. And then it leaves us with like a little bit of a difficulty bomb to work through. There's no other way
Yeah.
to put it.
Yeah.
And so right now we're kind of chugging our way through that difficulty bomb. The network is, slower than it's designed to balance with, but with time it will, drop down, and we'll probably experience a couple more minor bumps and then find some equilibrium. I think that was
Okay.
the general consensus with the team, in modeling, okay, what's going to happen. We'll get that spike, a couple speed bumps, and we'll find our equilibrium, basically a little bit after. Most chains are a little bit more dynamic in terms of how they adjust. Ergo's
Sure.
model was modeled after Bitcoin. There's a ton of
Okay.
miners out there that are in a state of pain right now, and that difficulty bomb is really not good for
Not
morale.
helping. Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't blame anybody for that. It's a rough situation, right?
Yeah.
It's hard
Well,
time.
and you guys aren't the only one where like profitability is a challenge. I think that the biggest thing that from a GPU miner's perspective is just misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And I would say that's really what I've seen throughout the content creation GPU miner scene over the last 2 to 3 days. Is just a misunderstanding. So for the young GPU miners that jumped on Ergo, which most did and are still on it, that aren't really understanding why the hash rate is not, as the hash rate comes down, the difficulty is not coming down. So from a high level, because I love the technical stuff, but a lot of that stuff is over my head, and I know a lot of my community that is as well. Can you explain to us why with Ergo, which is different, which is fine, it's okay to be different, that's what makes you guys unique, why the two don't necessarily work in tandem?
It floats over time, like it's an
Okay.
average, right? So that initial spike created like a difference in the average, and as we move forward, we have a really long floating period
Okay.
for our difficulty adjustment, and we need to basically float past that spike that you're looking at, and at
Okay.
that point, it'll equalize, and as it does, the hash rate will come down, profitability will rise a little bit, and then more people will hop on because profitability is rising, and then as profitability is crushed, because there's enough capacity out there to do that, we'll probably go through another little bump where the difficulty is, basically higher, and it'll adjust, but it takes time, right? That's kind of the design of our model. There's been a lot of reactions to that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
what can you do in a decentralized ecosystem other than say, okay, let's come together and come up with a plan B? And if
Yeah.
miners want to implement it, we'll build it.
Yeah, I
You
remember
know,
you saying that when I had you on some time back, when you and I were on the channel and we talked about it, and you something very much focused with the fact of with Ergo, you guys are reacting to the demand of miners. Miners have a huge amount of value and stake in the scene, especially with the voting, and so that was something that you had really pushed. Like you guys are kind of you're not in a boat like Ethereum per se, where
yeah,
you have the few that are making the decisions for the many. You're like, no, we react and we move based off of the request of the miners, who are doing the work for you guys. So no, that's awesome and really good to hear. That you guys, your approach to the concern in the GPU mining scene right now of like, hey, this is a challenge and this isn't going to work. And, I think the big thing is you really hit the nail on the head where when we go back to, the model that's up now, where we see that hash rate that spiked tremendously, 405. Holy cow. Like that's
yeah,
insane.
that was
Like,
that was beyond my expectations. I'm not gonna lie.
like,
I
so it hit that high. I mean, you guys internally, your minds must have been blown. Like, must
it
have been
was
blown.
like at that point, it's like, oof, we're gonna hit some pain.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. Now, it is true that what happens in a decentralized ecosystem where there's a problem people react to, they look to for one person to solve it, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, fix this now, and that's just not how the ecosystem operates.
Yeah.
Decentralized governance is actually quite a challenge because we have miners that have been with us for a long time that are like, listen, it will balance out. It's balanced out
Yeah.
before, and they're very much opposed to forking. And then you have new entrants that don't really understand the paradigm, and they say, okay, well, this is a huge problem. It's the end of the world. Heads exploding, all that good stuff. From a development side, I just say, okay, let's hop into a channel. Let's put a plan B in motion. And then, I can also talk with the development team and say, hey guys, if we do fork, like what else could we potentially remodel to upgrade the back end of the network?
Yeah.
If you're going to have somebody in your house and, do a little bit of construction, sometimes it's good to look around and be like, well, what could we add? What could we support that we currently don't? And, maybe if it comes to that, we could potentially put in some extra upgrades that just boost the performance of the network and our capabilities. So it's not something that I would say it depends on, it's not my place to say is the
Sure.
bottom line.
Sure. So in that regard, if the hash rate didn't go as high, then we wouldn't have seen the difficulty get to as high as where it was. And this might have been like, even if it was half of that, it would have helped out. But because the hash rate went so high, it forced the difficulty, is my understanding. And now it's like based off the way that the model is designed, it will take X amount of days to see this actually reflected off of these models. Is that accurate then?
Yeah, that's essentially accurate. And sometimes what'll happen when you have this spike, which, yeah, I mean, 400 is pretty intense, especially so quickly.
Yep.
So the miners do drop off because they're unprofitable, and then it makes the difficulty
Yeah.
bomb a little bit longer, right? And
Okay.
so that creates a certain negative feedback loop that, yeah, if we've been caught up in a little bit. We still have, miners hashing away on the network. We'll get through it, right? It's
Yeah.
not something I've ever seen as like the end of the world, and it sucks. But the truth is, if people were mining on the upside of the curve when we had fast blocks, they did get more rewards.
Yeah.
And then on the downside of the curve, they're going to get less rewards. So, over time, it does somewhat average out. Just depends on kind of people's, I don't know, what their game plan is in terms of time, right? And if
Yeah.
they're more of a short-term miner, yeah, right now is painful. We have some people in the ecosystem that, they were mining, even developers that are like, listen, right now my profitability is crushed. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep developing, keep building, keep learning. And when, times are better, I'll point my rig your way. But for now,
Yeah.
take it off, clean it, let it rest, adapt, right?
So what should we expect? So on the model here that you guys put together, which is great, the difficulty and epoch monitor, which is pretty much yin and yang here, complete opposites right now. Coming up here on the next epoch. So that's the big thing is like with the epochs, they're quite farther apart than what most GPU miners are used to. It's coming up here on the 24th. So several days away, based off of the direction of our hash rate kind of coming down pretty hard, and now kind of getting back down to that number of your 49. I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but once that happens on the 24th, we should see the difficulty drop as well. Is that accurate based off the model?
Yeah, yeah, we'll get over the hump, and at that point, we'll find equilibrium. It's
That's
slow.
awesome. Yeah,
That's
that's what it
that's
sounds
kind
like.
of the design of the model that we use.
Okay. So that's how that works. So for GPU miners, like what is going on with Ergo? It's like, all right, 24th difficulty will start to reflect or at least come up to date. But I guess the big one is like the delay will continue. The delay is going to like continue in that regard, and it'll be
Sure.
another several days out. So it's like difficulty is always several days behind, and that's just how your model is built with Ergo. Which is, I think, the big one where people have struggled with the misunderstanding. I think the biggest
Yeah.
one I heard was like, wait, the hash rate has come down from wherever we were at there, 400, now we're down to 50 again, which seems healthy at a good number now. And everybody's like, all right, well, at 50, let's see, if we swap back here, people are expecting a 3.4-ish difficulty when in reality, it's delayed. So can you speak a little bit towards why the delay? Like I'm sorry, what value is there to a delay that GPU miners might not understand?
Well, most people came off of ETH, right?
Okay.
And
Yep.
ETH had pretty fast blocks. In terms of like the chain itself, it was actually pretty messy, but they had a nice thing which is no cap, right? And
Yeah.
so suddenly, if you look at like the uncle block scenario on ETH, that was a good thing, right? Miners got paid. They loved it.
Yep.
If you look at that in terms of like looking at a blockchain, it's actually kind of a negative from a security
Yep.
perspective. That's not
Yep.
something you want to create or incentivize. And if you have a hard cap, you just can't do that.
Mm.
Ergo, because not only are we proof of work, but we also have contracts on top, we kind of have to be somewhat of a multi-tool in terms of like looking at potential attacks, right?
Okay.
And so a lot of our network, in terms of like propagation attacks, yeah, we try to be conservative. That was just the design of it. Now, it is true that after we go through our next node upgrade, 5.0, we're going to get more throughput. As we move towards 6.0, we're going to look at sub-block confirmations and actually, building in some things for performance. So potentially, a hard fork if it's needed, if miners, demand it. Because when you get into a hard fork, you get into like the situation of, okay, you have like consensus that needs to happen, right?
Mhm.
And when you have one guy at the top just dropping, this is the way, sometimes the community doesn't go with them, right?
Yes,
And then
yes, very much so.
I don't want to see an Ergo Classic, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah, it's true.
like from my perspective, it's a matter of saying, okay, there's a problem. We need to first put together a working group to monitor it, right? If there is hopping, and let's gather evidence and use that to bring to the community and say, hey guys, this is a problem, and also develop a working group to put together a potential fix. So if it needs to be
Yeah.
plugged in, it's there, right? And we've actually already started that, and this is not new, right? And it's something that devs have discussed. Like it's not a new conversation for me with Alex. We've looked at it and said, okay, well, if we do shorten kind of the epic length, maybe we can get it to adjust in real time a little bit faster. And
Okay.
there's a lot of complex security trade-offs there that miners for the most part don't really want to worry about. They just want to get paid. And
Yeah, I guess with having with you guys being under the kind of microscope now, just since the merge, now I think that's coming more to light where, we have the questionability of kind of riding the difficulty. We're scheduling rigs to happen, to hit the network hard with hash rate when that epoch occurs, and then drop off in order to avoid the difficulty, and then come back on again, and just kind of schedule that out. So it sounds like from your guys' perspective, the goal is to continue to monitor that now that the hash rate has started to drop more, to see is it a problem, and then take action as needed in order to address it from the developer side of the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not somebody that's gonna like dictate and plug in a quick solution, right?
Yeah, well, it's great.
We're just the wrong community for that.
Okay.
They're out there. What we'll do is we'll put together a plan B. We'll build it. We'll test it. We'll say, okay, these are the benefits of it, and then we'll look at the network and say, is it even needed, right? Because it is true that the merge has a hard reset, and it's not. To be honest, I don't think the dust has really settled yet. There's a ton of miners that are just hanging on, right? And that sucks. That's sad to see. And unfortunately, having the long difficulty adjustment is a little bit of extra salt at a really bad time,
Yeah, well, it's good that we originally saw, like, a lot of people moved to Ergo early on, hence the 405. But the fact that we're just a day out, or I'm sorry, a week out, and we've now seen that drop down to 50, which is still very valuable from that fact. We're starting to see things kind of stabilize. I know a lot of miners within the scene that even said we're going to take the next month and not mine at all and just wait for things to settle. Like, that was a common theme amongst a lot of experienced miners, where it was like, I'm not going to play the game for the first few weeks. We're just going to let it stabilize and we'll return. And I think that's the value of that, is like, you're not playing all these games and things are stabilizing. You're not getting stuck in these extremely unprofitable situations, which is, I think, good. And for myself, I have not experienced this before. Most people have not, but it's like these a massive ebb and flows where stabilization is needed. So it's like, all right, let's give it a few weeks to see what happens. And that's everyone I've talked to on your side of the world has very much said that. Like, it's going to take a few weeks to kind of see things level off and stabilize, and you'll lose a lot of people just who decide to sell their rigs and move on, or farms that have shut down, and you'll then see who's left over, and we'll kind of go from there. So it definitely seems like the general consensus. Before we let you go, any last things that you want to say to the community or mention the community now that you are on video and in the spotlight right now?
Sure. It's a matter of saying, okay, the problems can be identified, community can build fixes. That doesn't happen overnight in a decentralized ecosystem. A decentralized ecosystem in a way is always going to be a little bit slower and less efficient than just having the guy at the top dropping orders. But there's a lot of benefits in terms of like distribution of power. Anybody can hop on to either one of those groups and contribute, right? And ultimately, that's what builds a stronger community and stronger network. Everybody's jumping on different bandwagons as soon as they're profitable, and then they break. That's gonna be a pattern for a while. Like, I can't save anybody from that. It's just the amount of workers that just got fired that are looking for new work is overwhelming the demand capacity right now, and so that's somewhat of a race to the bottom, which sucks, right?
Mhm.
It sucks for everybody. I didn't create that, unfortunately, but we've been getting some heat for that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I get it's a
Yeah.
hard time for people, but I do think that proof of work over time, it'll come back. It just needs a kind of a consolidation reset, find the bottom, and then profitability will grow. But I do think that people should probably, in a way, almost forget the last chapter, because we're not there, right? The
Yeah.
only way you're going to have like instant profitability like you had on ETH is to build a time machine, and we don't have developers for that.
Well, I think the big one is like we are now this is one of those hills and valleys that you see over the last several years within the mining scene, and it's still young and still maturing. So we're at the bottom now. So we're at the bottom. This is really, I mean, it was not only are we experiencing the recession, but on top of that, now we have someone who carried proof of work profitability, kind of, as you said, got up and left. So now we've really come to the bottom. So now I think a great way you put it, consolidation and reset. It's like, that's what's occurring now. We're literally consolidating and stabilizing, and then it's going to be the slow climb up. And it'll take a while to get back to the top where we were a year ago, when everything under the sun was profitable, and it was amazing to be a miner then. But no one knows when that's going to be and how long it's going to take. And each time it might take a little bit longer, but it's going to be even more profitable for the next time and the next time and the next time.
I think that if people really step back and say, okay, if you want to be a miner, like, the best thing you can do, even if you can't run your rigs now, is engage in ecosystems. Like, build the tools that you will bring you profit once your rig comes back online. We have a lot of those in Ergo, and I'd be happy to like open the door and extend that invitation to miners that came off ETH that want to build DeFi or want to do that. We have a lot of educational tools, so even if your rig's offline, you can go to we have one channel called 𝐀𝐫𝐭𝐢𝐿 on YouTube that just it breaks down how does Ergo work, how to build on Ergo. There's a ton of things you can do if you're kind of on the sideline out of the game and want something to do. But in terms of that consolidation, there's nothing I can do short term to fix it. And even if we didn't have like the diff drama right now, I think we would still be in like a boat where profitability is crushed, just because the amount of workers out there. And the only way, around that is through it. So forward.
I like it. Well, Joseph, I appreciate you joining me today. I appreciate you answering some of my questions that I know are on the mind of many of other GPU miners out there. Guys, I'll leave a link down below to his Twitter if you guys have any additional questions or comments that you want to throw at him and the Ergo community. Other than that, I appreciate you joining me, Joseph, today, and I'll see everybody next time. Take care.
Have a good one.
The GPU Hangar. Misfit Mining and the Meterbox Company have partnered up to bring back the GPU hangars better than ever. The iconic Misfit Mining GPU hangar is now going to be PVC injection molded, making them stronger and more heat resistant than ever before. This project will be 100% community funded and produced once our goal is met. As a thank you for all your support, we are running a massive giveaway for the entire month of September, giving away over $7,000 in prizes like the 𝐼Polo V1 Mini, Mini Classic Plus, G1 Mini, tons of meter boxes, GPU hangers, and limited edition NFTs. Check out the new GPU hanger and enter this amazing giveaway. No purchase is necessary. You may also purchase additional items for even better chances to win. The GPU hanger contest is worldwide, extending through September 30th. Winners will be publicly announced on October 5th.